Welcome back, my friends, to the show that, while our portion ends every day, the Biden regime never stops. That's right. Welcome to episode 89 of the Countdown to Restoration show with me, your host, Danny Thompson. Glad to have you with us as we count down the horrors of the Biden regime, whom we refer to affectionately as the thief in chief. Yes, the thief in chief. Yeah, one more time. The thief in chief. Yeah, all right. Yeah, well, we try to get a little extra out of him sometimes. We pay him quite a bit. You think he can, he has a new blue sport coat for every day of the week. Yeah, courtesy of us. Anyway, big spenders here. So we've got a lot of show. Even though it's a slow news day, it's going to give us a time to delve into a few fun things and to look a little deeper into the lies and misdeeds and obfuscation of the Biden regime, whom makes the Obama administration look like they were patriots and middle-of-the-road people. I mean, this group is the biggest spenders to come around since I don't even know who. These people make it look like Obama couldn't count past $1 billion. Yeah, should start calling him $1 Trillion Joe. Want to catch up and make sure you're up to date on all of our shows, including the President's Day show where we went over seculardems.org, YouTube channel Danny Thompson, also on Rumble channel capital DANWT. I know when I was starting the channels, I wasn't thinking all this. Just kind of happened. Dr. Rachel Levin, the poster child for the mixed up, messed up, shook up Biden regime. They think he is a she. He thinks he is a she. What do we think? Huh? Tammy, what do you say? Let's have a little Tammy Wynette. Why not with some Tammy Wynette?
Sometimes it's hard to be a woman, 'cause after all, he's just a man. Stand by your man.
Yes, after all, he is just a man, ladies and gentlemen. Can't deny it. Nobody's denying it. He is what he is. A man with long hippie hair. This will make him unhappy but happy. A Virginia teacher was put on leave after opposing new rights for trans students. Now, this is an old story, just really hadn't put it on yet. What happened was the gym teacher, the beloved gym teacher, got up and said he was not going to lie to students. They're a boy, they're a boy. If they were born a male, they're a male. If they were born a female, they're a female. And that he was not in favor of moving boys into girls' sports, etc., etc. So they put him on leave. It was a school board meeting and it was open for discussion, but they didn't like his views. So anyway, Dr. Levine is probably unhappy over his views, but happy that the kids won't have to face such terror, being told that you were born with certain things, you are that thing. Yes. Seculardems.org, very important to go there to read, to understand the anti-Christian phobia that foams and froths upon the lips of those of the regime. They really are anti-Christ. Biden is not the Antichrist. If Biden's the Antichrist, things aren't going to happen the way the Bible said. I can tell you that. Be bumbling through everything. But they are Antichrist. They don't mind Islam. They don't mind Hinduism. They don't mind Buddhism. They don't mind Taoism. They don't mind Islamism. They do not like Christianity or any offshoot thereof. They hate it. They don't want any part of it. Except the very liberal ones that agree with them on everything. But seculardems.org. You can go and find out the driving thoughts behind secular Democrats of America who are guiding this regime in all of their policy. Because remember, everything's a government-wide approach. Didn't really know where to put this, so we just put this here. Netanyahu foes push for quick vote to end his 12-year rule. Now then, is that all we have on this? Did we have? Oh yeah, we got something else. All right, we'll put this up over here. Because their system works a little bit differently than our system, as it is a parliamentary system. And the regime, even though they won't comment on it, they are quivering. They are trembling with anticipation. They are so giddy in the halls of the West Wing and the State Department and the UN that they almost cannot control themselves. They are lined up to give high fives since the COVID restrictions are off and they don't have to bump elbows. They are so excited that Netanyahu may have to step down. It's not a done deal yet, but oh, it could be. It could be. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Opponents pushed Thursday for a quick parliament vote to formally end his lengthy rule, hoping to head off any last-minute attempts to derail their newly announced coalition government. The latest political maneuvering began just hours after opposition leader Yair Lapid and his main coalition partner Naftali Bennett, who is a good guy. He would be a great prime minister, only he won't be able to do what he'll really want to do because of all the liberal groups he had to gear up with. Declared they had reached a deal to form a new government and muster a majority in the 120-member Knesset or parliament. And so, Israel, having what I think is one of the just stupidest governmental systems in the world, the parliament. That's right, where you have to win a majority of seats and then you control everything. I don't like it. Our founding fathers did not like it. In countries such as ours, where they're basically a two-party system, it's easier to win a full majority. Then you get the Speaker of the House, or whatever they call him. You get the Prime Minister out of that. And everything goes according to what that party wants. Well, our founders did not want that. People complain all the time about government not working. And if you look at the original founding documents of the United States of America, the greatest country that's ever been. That's right, as far as the democracy. Then you find that our founders really didn't want government to work that well. They could have went with the parliamentary system. They were well versed in it. They understood it, but no. They wanted a government at odds with each other. 3 co-equal branches. The executive, the legislative, and the judicial. And they wanted them equal so one could not rule over the other, even though we got some things out of line here. Because they wanted tension in the government. They did not want just to dismiss other people's views. It's how come even in the Senate they set up ways that they could slow things down. They didn't want a quick acting government. They didn't want a government that could just respond to crises any way it wanted to without opposition. See, Israel, once one side controls, one side controls. All of the appointments, all of the laws, everything. They can rubber stamp it pretty much. No, we don't want that. People will say, no, our government's not working. It's not doing what it needs to do for the people. Often the best thing government can do is not work. We don't need new laws passed all the time. We don't even enforce all the laws that we have. We can't. It's impossible. There's too many. So our founders set up a very good system a system that can drive you crazy because it just doesn't work right. But it does work right. It works to keep the government off our backs when it is working right. And the thought is, if all three branches can come together to produce what should be good for the country, it should be good for the country. You have one party controlling all three branches, then it happens. Not often. Then you just get what that party wants. And the other side, the rest of the people, we've just got to take it. And we say that's democracy. Well, our founders didn't want democracy. The pretend president keeps running around saying that this is a threat to our democracy, that's a threat to our democracy. Our founders didn't want democracy. They wanted a representative government. It's not in the founding documents, but Abraham Lincoln added it, a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. That's pretty much the way it should be. Not just one ideal, not just one party, not just one thought. And yet more and more the Democrats want to push it where it's just that, just one thought, just one way. Well, that's not good. That hurts us. That destroys us. Even if it was Republican and we had some Republicans that made sense, just one thought forever, that's not good, because politicians corrupt. They start working on the same things. They become idealists and don't really do things that work. They start thinking they can run economies. They start thinking they have business answers. They start thinking that freedom comes under their mindset instead of the greater mindset of all of us. And so we don't want one thought. We don't want one rule. No, you like a messed up government. You like a government with people that won't get out of the way. I mean, even when John McCain, almost dead from cancer, showed up to keep Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, from being overturned, as much as I disliked that vote, and that was the wrong vote, and that was the wrong motive and everything, that's part of government. It's not part of our government when one side just says the other side should do what they want. Don't ever be for that. Even if we're in charge, the conservatives are in charge, it's okay if somebody steps out and says, I don't want to do that. Because if they can step out, then we can step out. It's okay. Keep the filibuster. Sometimes it is maddening. But other times, it saves the country. We've got to understand all this. Yeah, the regime, they want Netanyahu out so bad, I don't know if it's going to work, because that government there's no way they're going to get along. But we'll see. Well, let's keep our government the way it is. That's commentary number 1. Speaking of the filibuster, let's stop and do a little filibuster shuffle here. Because everybody always wants Biden to be on the side of getting rid of the filibuster, which he is and he isn't.
Can you clarify the president's position on the filibuster?
In what way? I've talked about it quite extensively yesterday. I'm happy to repeat it and often, but the president's view is that he believes that there should be a path forward for Democrats and Republicans to work together to get the job done on behalf of the American public, whether that is voting rights and ensuring that more people have access to voting rights, or whether that is moving forward on other priority items for him. He has talked in the past about a move back to the talking filibuster. It shouldn't be so easy to invoke the filibuster. That is his view, but it hasn't changed beyond that.
I'm not sure what his view is after that, are you? I mean, what do you think, my friend?
You don't know what you're talking about, do you, sir?
No. In other words, it's like, like it to go away now, but then come back when I need it, when the Senate is retaken by the grand old party, the Republicans. Yes, because it will be. As the House will fall. Many changes are coming because the country doesn't like this path that we're on. We've got to do it quick before everybody's tasted that drug of free money that isn't free, comes at a very high price. Anyway, we move on. Yes, we are going to cover a lot of things today, like I said, in depth. Look at everything, tear it apart, show you how bad this world is. First of all, we start with some COVID news. Boy, old Fossey is creating a stir with those emails. Stay tuned. More to come on that later. Another show. Biden announces new incentives. Krispy Kreme's giving out donuts. West Virginia's giving out rifles. Some states are giving out $1 million prizes. Can't beat this one, though. Including free beer to reach COVID vaccination goal. I think it's Anheuser-Busch partnering with the regime. On 4th of July, you get a vaccination, you get a beer. Yeah. Shouldn't you get the beer before? I'm not going to get any. I'm just telling you what they're doing. This is very interesting. And I find it interesting not only because it is being reported now finally, because many of us, and I say many of us because I was included in the number as I lost friends and family over my thoughts on COVID when it first came out. I know you find that hard to believe, but I did. And one of the ex-New York Times editor, Alex Berenson, is that how you say his name? I don't know. I'm the only one here, so I think that's it. Many of us came to the conclusion early on, you just got to let it run its course. If you run its course, if you do what you can, wash your hands, this and that, keep open, don't destroy the country. Man, how I hated the day that President Donald Trump came out and said, we're going to have to stay shut down past Easter. And I know he wishes he could take that day back 100 times over. There was Fossey and Burke smirking on the sidelines. They had just scared the pants off of him in the Oval Office, not literally. It's not Bill Clinton. Had to throw that one in. With all the deaths that were going to happen, and you know what? The deaths happened anyway. There's no way to prove it would have been anything else. And this is what this article is. If we'd have just acted wisely instead of just running and making decisions based on nothing but fear. California mandated masks. Florida opened its restaurants. Did any of it matter? Which COVID-19 restrictions really worked and which ones really didn't? Find this so enlightening, even though I said many of us already knew it. After a partial lockdown in the spring of 2020, Florida and Texas were among the states that most aggressively reopened their economies. Florida was shut down longer than just the spring. I was there. Love Florida. I miss you. Anyway, they did start reopening finally, but wouldn't let you in a lot of places. We're among the states that most aggressively reopened their economies. Most businesses were allowed to resume operations in May or June of last year. Reporting's a little off. Florida never instituted a public mask mandate, but every city and county did. Texas was the first state to revoke its mask mandate this spring. California, Georgia kind of did theirs, but California and New York, on the other hand, have been more cautious. They didn't let some businesses, like movie theaters and gyms, reopen until months after their more conservative counterparts had already done so. Their state mask mandates are still at least partially in effect. And yet, looking at the case and death numbers, and since the coronavirus pandemic began, it's not obvious which states were cautious and which were not. New York, the original epicenter of the outbreak, has endured the second most deaths per capita behind New Jersey, 271 per 100,000, Florida and Texas, despite much criticism of their laissez-faire, means basically hands-off, so we were taught in high school economics. Laissez-faire approach, partially in effect. What? Okay, here we are. Approach rank right in the middle among states, 28th and 24th, 26th and 24th, respectively, in the number of deaths per 100,000 people. California fared marginally better, sitting at 30th. But boy, they were really shut down for a while. After a year of debates over mask mandates, lockdowns, and school closures, that mixed evidence might suggest a certain fatalism. Did none of these state policies really matter, or was the virus going to spread no matter what states did? Was it all for nothing? Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. How can you say that, Danny? Well, because the data shows it. And we're all about science, aren't we? Yes, we are all about science here. And the science shows nothing helped. Nothing helped. It runs its course. It was deadly, and we still don't know how many people actually died from the virus or died with the virus. Now they're separating it. But they couldn't then. We don't know. What we do know is it's a bad deal. And now it's okay to say it could have come from the lab. When Donald Trump said that, it was horrible. If we'd have just stayed open, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of this that we're experiencing now would not be happening. But can't go back. What we can do is rescue. Come on, Biden, and rescue me. All right, we throw that under the American Rescue Plan because the regime does. Jobless claims fall below 400,000 for the first time since the early days of the pandemic. And that's good. We are glad and happy about that. Initial jobless claims fell to 385,000 last week, the first time below 400,000 since March of 2020. And again, did not have to do that because we didn't have to shut everything down. Despite the decline in weekly claims, continuing claims rose by 169,000 to 3.77 million. That data runs a week behind the headline claims numbers. So, good and bad. Of course, they're not talking about the mixed results. The jobless claims data comes a day ahead of the closely watched non-farm payrolls report from the Labor Department. The estimate is for 671,000 new jobs after April's disappointing, 266,000 at a time when expectations were for 1 million. So that will be tomorrow. The regime is already, they're taking some bows, but being cautious because they remember last month at this time when the jobs report came out and everybody panicked.
Encouraging report. Initial claims for unemployment insurance fell to their lowest level and below 400,000 for the first time since the pandemic hit. This is just the latest evidence that President Biden's economic strategy and vaccination plan are working. While weekly data can be volatile, since taking office, average claims have fallen by about 50%, which you can see in this chart over the course of time, and by more than 100,000 in the last month alone. And earlier this week, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, as it's commonly known, one of the leading bodies in analyzing economic growth around the world, increased their projection for U.S. economic growth this year to 6.9% due to the strength of the American Rescue Plan and our pandemic response to get Americans vaccinated and lift our economy out of the crises that we inherited. In fact, the United States is the only major industrialized nation to have its growth projection through 2025 revised upward. We also learned earlier this week that manufacturing activity in May was near its highest level in more than 15 years.
Now, I do not not widely fault the regime for taking credit where credit isn't due, because all new incoming administrations do that. But in 2017, basically the same year, unemployment was at 4.3%, and initial unemployment claims were 234,000. That was June for Donald Trump, when the report came out thereabout. And so we see that Donald Trump during that time did too start taking credit for some job creation, but he actually did something to create jobs. What did he do? Because you have to understand, the incoming president is always under the budget and the plans and the policies of the outgoing president. President Biden, they passed the American Rescue Plan, which they brag on as creating jobs. It doesn't create jobs. There's really not anything in it that creates jobs. It helps keep some jobs, just like the Paycheck Protection Plan did and other things that they did under Trump. What he does also take credit for in a roundabout way are all the vaccinations, which, the vaccinations are by and large happening under him because he's the one there. But if it wasn't for the previous rightful administration, there would be nothing to vaccinate with. So we have a problem here where they keep talking about the jobs they created. And unlike other administrations, it's not new jobs happening by and large, but it's the opening of previously closed businesses and hiring people that were previously laid off or let go in one way or another because of the pandemic. It's not the same, ladies and gentlemen. And the 6% growth, while you think, wow, that's great, that's on last year's catastrophic collapse. And they're not creating. What's happening is people are doing what? Yeah, people are opening up. Now, I'm sure there's some new jobs in there. But they have done nothing to create millions of new jobs. And whatever the jobs report says, whether it's good tomorrow, and I already told you that they've decided they're not going to have another bad jobs number, even if they have to do revisions later, because then nobody pays attention. It's like today's headline can be wrong. They'll put a correction tomorrow buried on page 36, a small paragraph saying, oh, we got that wrong. Nobody pays attention. So they're not going to have a bad jobs number. I don't think they're going to have a great one, but they're not going to have a bad one. Not again. They were told not to, and I think they know better this time, because that slowed down everything. That shook people's confidence. But ladies and gentlemen, even under Trump, other than the fact they weren't just looking, they were shredding regulations, which created a small hiring boom, but because businesses was like, yeah, we're free, we can operate. And they weren't regulations that were killing the air quality and polluting the water and discriminating against people. It was just stupid stuff. Just stuff that people sitting behind desks say, wouldn't that be great if companies did this or did that? Or we should have a rule against this. See, most of what governs business isn't just law. It's regulations made up by people that just get a job and get stuck in an office, and they hand them a book and say, hey, help us out with this. Oh, there's not enough rules here. Let's put some more. But see, Trump had people saying, oh, there's way too many rules. This rule keeps you from doing this, and this rule keeps that from working here, and this. And they went in and just started shredding. And so the economy started to grow, and then, of course, the tax cuts came, etc., etc. Now, that's not what you'll hear from the Biden regime, because they live in a revisionist history where the tax cuts did nothing, didn't help anybody but the wealthy. And everybody knows, if you go back and look, tax cuts helped everybody, especially those in the middle class, and it's still helping. I'm going to hear more about taxes in just a moment, but ladies and gentlemen, this regime is so crooked that dogs want another term because they don't like that crooked as a dog's hind leg when applied to the Biden regime. And I don't know if anybody uses that anymore, but dogs don't like it, so don't do it. Maybe the old nursery rhyme, there was a crooked man who walked a crooked mile, fell up a flight of Air Force One steps and had a crooked smile. Maybe that one would work. Remember that one? All right, what do we have? No John Kerry news. No, not today. We have more Biden regime news. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, we just played that, right? Where they took credit for everything. Let's have a little ABBA. No money for us. Yeah, so long. Won't you be glad when we can say so long to these people? I don't know about you, but I find them just make my skin crawl. That's just me. All right, I told you yesterday, and everybody else did too, that Biden was meeting with Senator Capito as they were trying to come to a agreement on the American Jobs Plan. That's right. Biden wants, the $3 trillion, $3.5 trillion worth of spending, even though the plan only says 2.5, it's a trillion short. Republicans, they don't even really want to hit the trillion, but they might come up to trillion. So Biden, he kind of pared his offer down, did a little change on taxes because he wants it to sail through. And the parliamentarian of the Senate is not sure how the Democrats can filibuster proof the American Jobs Plan as it comes up and of course the House hadn't even started on it, but they're doing all this talking. Well, it made a lot of news about the taxes because, as you know or may know or should know, Biden's main push is to raise the corporate tax rate up to 28%. And, of course, raise taxes on individuals making $400,000 or more, married couples making not $800,000, $500 and something. I'll show you in a minute. Back to 39-point-something% from where it is right now. I don't make that much, so I don't know it. But anyway, the talk about taxes created a little bit of a stir, and of course Jim took it nearly all back. I'm not sure. Biden offers tax deal to Republicans in infrastructure talks. President Joe Biden is trying to break a logjam with Republicans on how to pay for infrastructure improvements, proposing a 15% minimum tax on corporations and the possibility of revenues from increased IRS enforcement as a possible compromise, which they're going to do that anyway, so I don't understand that. The offer was made Wednesday to Republican Senator Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia as part of the bipartisan negotiations and did not reflect a change in Biden's overall vision for funding infrastructure, according to a person familiar with the talks who insisted on anonymity to discuss private conversations. Of course they did. Of course, if you name a White House official, they get to edit what you're writing. That's right. That's the way you get to name them. You got to give them some control over what you say. Biden has proposed increasing the corporate tax rate to 28% from 21% to help fund his plans for roads, bridges, electric vehicles, and broadband, and that remains his preferred approach. It's not just that. He has other taxes. But the rate hike is a non-starter with Republicans because it would undo the 2017 tax cuts signed into law by President Donald Trump. And they really weren't Trump's tax cuts as much as they were Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell's tax cuts. That's why McConnell's hanging on to them. By floating an alternative, there is no minimum corporate tax now on profits. See, we're going to talk about that. Biden was trying to give Republicans a way to back infrastructure without violating their own red line of keeping corporate tax rates low. The Washington Post first reported the offer. And on Thursday, Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell said he spoke with Capito after the session and is still hoping to reach a deal with the administration. I don't know why. Why you got to reach a deal with them? Just cut them off at the knees. Don't do anything. You know, why didn't you do it with Trump? Let's reach an agreement on infrastructure that's smaller but still significant and paid for, he said in Paducah, Kentucky. The president is essentially staking out the principle that profitable corporations should pay income taxes. Many companies can avoid taxes or minimize their bills through a series of credits, deductions, and other ways of structuring their income and expenses. It's called the tax law, ladies and gentlemen. They don't just do it. If any company does not legally pay taxes, it's because the tax laws enable that. It's not their fault. What, you're going to send in money? If you say you had the best year you ever had, maybe you made $100 million, and your accountant says, hey, you know, we do this, this, and that, and legally you don't have to pay a dime in taxes. Are you going to say, no, it's my patriotic duty. Let's not do that. Let's pay taxes. No, you're going to take it because that's the law. That's why it's there. There's the tax rate, then there are deductions. There are credits because the government wants you to take up certain habits and take up certain practices as a business. And so they do what? They offer tax credits. If you'll do this, we'll give you a tax credit. That reduces the amount of taxes that you pay. They want you to do that or they wouldn't give you the tax credit. But what does Biden say? No, this is horrible. They don't pay taxes under the law. Under the law, many companies can avoid taxes or minimize their bills through a series of credits, deductions, and other ways of structuring their income and expenses. The president has insisted that the middle class should not bear the cost of greater infrastructure spending, yet a chasm exists in negotiations because Republicans say that corporate tax increases will hinder economic growth. Stupid Republicans, why would businesses paying more slow down economic growth? I don't understand that, huh? You know, the Democrats know that, but again, they want everything to slow down. And plus, there are some that really think, no, corporations just have all that money and they won't raise prices, they won't cut payroll, they won't do anything to offset that loss because that's the way our America works. Well, your America is just drawn up on whiteboards and computer models. Get out in the real world. Just a suggestion. Anyway, it came up a lot during today's press briefing with Jen Psaki.
Back on infrastructure, so just to be clear, this $1 trillion in new spending and the focus on the minimum tax instead of corporate tax hikes, is this the president's best and final offer to Republicans?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to note we have a range of means for moving the president's ideas and proposals forward. And the president's going to have a conversation with Senator Capito tomorrow. He's very much looking forward to that. I will tell you for clarity that what he put forward would have been new spending on top of a baseline of $400 billion over 5 years. That amount of money that would be expected to be invested in infrastructure regardless of these talks. And beyond that, I think in terms of the pay-fors, we're open to other options. The president is just not going to raise taxes on Americans making less than $400,000 a year. If the Republicans want to go back to raising the corporate rate as a part of this specific negotiation, we are absolutely for that, and we think that these corporations could pay more. If there are other options, great. We're not going to go down the road of user fees or other areas that would raise taxes on the American people.
And how much of the plan does that minimum tax cover? Does the White House?
It's in our budget, and you can take a look.
And just on the corporate tax rate, are you confident progressive Democrats in Congress would get behind a proposal that doesn't include an increase in the corporate tax rate?
Well, to be clear, the president absolutely thinks that that corporations can afford to pay more, and especially including corporations that paid zero in taxes over the last several years. That was why it was in his proposal as a pay-for, and certainly a range of members, including progressives, are certainly well aware of what was in the president's American Jobs Plan proposal as pay-for.
Now then, so the president tells Senator Capito, okay, we will add $1 trillion to, we'll start at $400 billion as the spending, then let me add $1 trillion to it. And to pay for that, we'll have a 15% minimum corporate tax, which means there's no deductions, there's no credits. You will pay a minimum 15% tax on your profits. Well, that is going to add to everyone's taxes, ladies and gentlemen. It sounds like, oh, that's a good deal. And for some corporations it might be, because, you know, if you've ever looked at an income tax form or anything, and maybe you've seen the alternative minimum tax that you can file as an individual taxpayer. Well, it's very high, but you don't have to do all the filling out. Just pay this, all right? And it saves some people money. Most people, it costs money. But it's sometimes the only way you could do it, at least in the past. Well, this is the same for corporations. For some corporations, they'd be like, shoot, I'll just pay the alternative minimum tax. But, of course, they'll have that built in where you can't do that. But that means no one gets a break. Now, that will not fund everything. And so Jen is saying, no, we're going to have that plus the 28% rate. So that means even after all the credits, all the deductions, you know, it's like, what deductions? Well, you know, rent, lights, camera, you know, camera actually today, computers, payroll, benefits, all the money that you pay to operate is a deduction. It's an expense. It's not a profit. So if company Y makes Y, I don't know, just Y, makes $100 and their expenses are $90, then they would only pay taxes on $10. Okay? Now let's say the federal government gave them a $10 tax credit because business Y put in new windows. So on top of everything else, they get a $10 tax credit. Now they owe zero tax. They put in new energy efficient windows and the government said, here's a $10 tax credit. So now they owe nothing. Did they do anything wrong? No. But if the government now says, hey, you've got to pay a 15% minimum tax though on that $10. No matter what, even with the credit, you've got to pay that because that's a profit. Well, then you know you got to pay your $1.50 in taxes. Plus, what does that mean? Probably they're not going to put in those windows unless they really want to, which means the window company that put them in, the installers, they're not going to make any money. Which means the company that manufactured the windows, they're not going to make that money. And it just goes on down the line. You know, the neighborhood gas station's not going to make as much money because they weren't coming every day in their truck. The window installers weren't to fill up with gas, and you just take it down the line. Government tax credits, although I think everything should just be deduct your expenses, leave everybody alone, have a low rate, and let's just pay it and get on with it. But this helps a lot of ways. But people don't understand that. Because they just hear, oh, some corporations didn't pay any taxes. Well, they did. They paid a lot of taxes. And payroll taxes alone, trust me. All right, what else do we have here from the take your money and run people in the Biden regime?
Is the president's position that he would be willing to do away with this increase in the corporate tax rate if Republicans agreed to a minimum 15% corporate tax rate?
Well, let's take a step back. The book minimum was in the president's American Jobs Plan proposal as a proposed pay for. It was also in our budget. So this is not a new idea. This is a component of what he's proposed for a pay for that he's lifting up as a question as to whether they could agree to that, because it certainly doesn't violate anything about the 2017 taxes. So that's what he's putting forward as an idea that he's asking them where their point of view is.
So he's saying it could be one or the other.
Well, no, he believes that we should continue to look at raising the corporate rate. That is a way to pay for a range of ideas. He's got a lot of ideas out there, a lot of bold proposals, including that aren't a part of this infrastructure negotiation. And he continues to believe that corporations can pay more. But the bottom line is that these proposals he's put forward as pay-fors in the American Jobs Plan, including IRS enforcement, which is also in our budget, of course, and this book minimum tax, are ways that unless you think corporations shouldn't pay any tax at all, and we'll leave that to others to speak to, then there should be a way to find a path to agreement.
There are certain little code words you have to pick up in their messaging, and they mean what they're saying. They're trying to do it to alter everybody's thought. One is, as we heard earlier, they'll say, we're not going to raise taxes on Americans. And why do they say that? Because it's those making, they're saying only those that make under 400,000, and corporations are only those that make under 400,000 are true Americans. Everybody that makes over 400,000, they're not real patriotic Americans. Corporations, those aren't by American people. No, because they say that. She has consistently talked like that. We're not going to fund this on the back of Americans. We're not going to raise taxes on Americans. So they're already trying to create a divide there, and it'll get in people's heads. Now, also, what she is saying is, no, we're going to have both. We are putting this in now to get that 15% minimum tax, but we also want the 28% tax because we've got a lot of things we're going to be doing. And none of this pays for any. I mean, none of it is completely paid for because it takes, 15 years down the road or more before it's paid for. But she's saying, no, we're going to be raising taxes a lot. We want both. It's just right now, we'll go it like this way. I mean, and people, these, and eventually they're coming below 400,000, and technically they already are. Biden tax plan calculator, see how much you can expect to pay under the new proposals. Excuse me. President Biden has unveiled a sweeping proposal in his many plans to bolster the government-funded social safety net. Good way to put it, because that's all it is. 99.9% of it all is for welfare. It's redistribution of wealth. I explained this when Hillary Clinton was running against Donald J. Trump, the rightful commander-in-chief. We salute you, sir. I explained to my then would have been, he's 11 now, minus 4. He was about 7, and it was Christmas time. He was wanting some presents, and, it wasn't quite Christmas time, but Thanksgiving time. He was, even before that. Election's November 3rd. Anyways, around that time. And he said, who do we want, Grandpa? Trump or Hillary Clinton? And I said, we vote in Hillary Clinton. You want a lot of presents for Christmas? Yeah. Well, she will make a law that says you have to give half of your presents away. You have to give them to someone else. So who do you want? I want Trump. I thought the best way to explain taxes to him and what Hillary wanted to do. Well, this is all these people want to do. They want to take someone's Christmas presents away and give it to someone else who didn't have as good a Christmas. Now, that is a great thought, but it should be that person that had the great Christmas that wants to do it. Well, I got 2 months. Let me go do this. Not the government just saying, hey, we're taking this. That's not right. That kills investment. That hurts people. That rewards being poor. And the more you reward someone for being poor, the poorer you make everyone, because you have to keep taking from those that have to fund those that don't have. That is the tried and failed communist example, socialist example. Oh no, in Europe they do this, that. Yeah, and they have very high prices. But it's all right. Let's punish the wealthy. They can afford it. That's what they keep saying. They're not Americans. You got to be middle class to be an American. President Biden has unveiled a sweeping proposal to bolster the government-funded safety net, a $1.8 trillion measure that would be funded by substantially raising taxes on wealthy Americans. A 10-year initiative that takes 50, and that's just one of them that takes 15 years to pay for, which can be changed, which means they'll never be paid for. The 10-year initiative, dubbed the American Families Plan, this doesn't even include the American Jobs Plan, seeks to dramatically boost federal dramatically boost federal investment in education, child care, and paid family leave. Investment with what? Their money? No, your money. It would be funded by raising the individual income tax rate to 39.6. Now, this has nothing to do with corporations. This is all on individuals. See, they're still talking American Jobs Plan. They haven't even got to the American Families Plan. So, it's going to be, they want a 15% minimum tax. They want the IRS to beef up enforcement of wealthier Americans and corporations. They want a 28% corporate tax. They want a higher individual tax. It's not going to stop there because none of these raised taxes actually pay for anything. It's not enough. It would be funded by raising the individual income tax rate to 39.6, where it's set before Republicans' 2017 tax overhaul, for families with a joint taxable income of about $509,300 and individuals earning more than $452,700. Now, your math may be better, your math skills may be better than mine, but I would think if you were going to make this fair, which nothing in the income tax code is fair, then if you're a married couple and you're making $1 million, you're going to pay a lot more money than two single people who are making that money, because single people, it's up to $452,000. Married people, it's a combined $509,000. So if you and your spouse make over $250,000 apiece, that's not $400,000. Yours is going up. Yeah. And there's more than that. There's the capital gains taxes, which is very high, the highest rate we've had in forever, since the 1920s. Man, that's not going to hurt. That's going to hurt. You think it's going to hurt, Jen?
It's also the president talked about the American Jobs Plan and what it does for closing the racial wealth gap. Does he give a cast iron guarantee that whatever these negotiations are with Republicans, that will remain intact? There'll be no compromise on racial equity?
Racial equity and addressing racial equity is central to the president's initiatives, his commitments to rebuilding our economy around the country, and certainly he's not going to give up on that.
No, he's not going to give up on racial equity, because not only does he want to take your money to build infrastructure and do all these other things, he wants to take your money and give it to people of color who didn't have that money. Makes sense. We've got to do that, ladies and gentlemen. You know, she didn't just say, no, he's still committed to it, so I'm thinking something's up there. Anyway, what's up here? Oh, it's that time? Okay, we had a border question today. They are far and few between, unless some kind of horrible video shows up of a child screaming because some horrible adult left them on the other side of the wall and ran off. And everybody says, oh, that helps them out in the long run. I'd like to take those people and line them up against a wall and leave them somewhere. Wouldn't that be fun? Yeah, well, we had a question about it. The Remain in Mexico program has ended.
Just one more.
Yeah.
The Remain in Mexico policy has ended. Is it still your message to immigrants coming from Central America not to come, that the border is still closed?
correct. Our message is still this is a dangerous time to come. We've been clear in our assessment that the MPP program, more commonly known as Remain in Mexico, was quite problematic. It led to dangerous and inhumane conditions along Mexico's northern border, in part because of the camps and the conditions at the camps. That's something the president talked about, or we've talked about for some time. And Secretary Mayorkas and DHS determined that the program does not adequately or sustainably enhance border management either. So our message continues to be this is not the time to come. We want to have an effective immigration system in place, including asylum processing at our border, and that has not changed. But ending the Remain in Mexico program is something we've long talked about.
Yes, and you know what that says to everyone? What does it say, Rod? Ready?
Angela Fuentes, come on down!
You know what? You just can't come out and say, no, the border's closed. We're just not doing that anymore. Now we're going to let them stay in the U.S. when they come and knock on the door. Trump had a program. Hey, if you're going to come and claim asylum, fine, but you're going to stay in. If you won't do it at the embassy in your country or wherever the legal port is, you can just stay in Mexico till your case comes up. Or wherever you want. No, can't do that because, it's not fair to those migrants. So what are you going to do with them? They come in, ladies and gentlemen. If they don't send them to Mexico, where are they going when they come? I mean, put 1 and 1 together. 1 plus 1 never equals 3, even in Common Core. Eventually, you've got to get to 2. Unless you're doing racial-free math, then it can be whatever you want. Unless you're white, then you've still got to come up with 2. I don't mean that against anybody else. That's just the way they teach it. Because it's racially unfair to require other than white people to come up with exact math answers. Why? Because they think everybody other than white people are stupid. Can't do it. They're the racists. Didn't even mean to get off on that. No, they're going to leave them here. They're going to bring them in. It's just another way. These people want us overrun with all of these immigrants. They want it. And they're not immigrants. They're illegal. I mean, they are immigrants, but they're illegal. Under Biden, crossing the U.S. border has become like a lottery for migrants. Timing is everything. Something I asked myself why they let me stay and they deported others, said a 20-year-old Nicaraguan man, and I give thanks to God. Why me? Why not others? Why not everybody? Why not everybody? Let's just bring them all in. Let's have a Central America party, huh? As dawn broke over a shuttered flea market in Mission, Texas, where Tom Landry's from, the late great coach of the Dallas Cowboys. On Tuesday, May 25th, Anna and her 7-year-old son, Walter. Anna and Walter. See, they even got names ready for this country. Sat sobbing on the curb. The Salvadoran mother and son had once again been caught by the Border Patrol trying to enter the U.S. undetected, and they feared a repeat of what happened the last time they were caught. Now, are we supposed to applaud them for their persistence or what? I get so confused. In April, U.S. border agents had sent them back into the Mexican city of Nuevo Laredo, where Anna said they were kidnapped and held for a $10,000 ransom? Man, what? I'm afraid that they are going to send me back to Mexico, said Anna. I don't want to go back. I'm afraid there. I'm very afraid. Walter huddled next to his mother, clutching his stuffed dinosaur named Senor Dinosauro, as he cried. How'd they get free from the kidnappers? That's the story we want to hear. I mean, did they have $10,000? If you got $10,000, can't you just come here on vacation and not go back? I mean, really? That's the story I want to hear. While they sat on the curb waiting to find out what U.S. officials would do with them, 15 single adult men caught crossing the border days earlier were released by authorities to a nearby shelter where they waited for flights and buses that would take them to cities across the U.S. Because we're expelling all single people, huh? There they would reunite with family members and then wait to have their asylum cases heard by immigration judges. They knew they were among the lucky ones. That's right, they are. Because it's hit and miss. Sometimes I ask myself why they hadn't had me, and they deported others, said a 20-year-old Nicaraguan who said he left home to find work and was now headed to Miami. And I give thanks to God. Good choice, by the way. Head to Miami. Do you have $10,000 to pay kidnappers? You know, I don't know. When he took office, President Joe Biden loosened the rules at the border. Loosened the rules at the border. That's the understatement of the world. That's like not just loosening your shoelaces, but pulling the shoelaces out and throwing the shoe out the window. That's what that's like. Yeah, come on. Letting children without parents cross, but agents were supposed to expel all other undocumented migrants. The policy allows the Biden administration to say the border is closed. I should have our old friend, what was her name? She retired, saying the border is open. What was her name? The policy allows the Biden administration to say the border is closed, but in reality, the border is not closed. Under Biden, the determination of who stays and who goes has become a lottery with winners and losers. Timing is everything. The merits of an asylum claim often beside the point. On some days here in the Rio Grande Valley, or in Texas we just say Rio Grande, the busiest section of the U.S.-Mexico border, families like Anna and Walter are expelled, while on others, single males who've come looking for work are allowed to stay pending their hearings. It's not what the regime said, is it? Yeah, they lie. You don't know that? Oh, yeah. Again, getting back to the dogs, they lie like a dog. Only I've never known a dog that lied. The reason explained, Rio Grande Valley Border Patrol Sector Chief Brian Hastings, is that some enter on days when Mexico cannot take them back. Boy, that's a national policy. There's Anna and Walter. You know, I feel sorry for them. You know, if you come out against it, it makes it sound like you're heartless, and you know these people have rough lives, but why don't we just take in everybody then? Hastings told NBC News that 17% of all families and single adults apprehended by his agents last year have been released into the U.S., much as they would have been before the Trump administration began using the COVID-19 restrictions known as Title 42 to begin denying access to asylum seekers in 2020. Border-wide, approximately 15% of single adults and 65% of families are released into the U.S. rather than expelled, according to the Customs and Border Protection data from April. Hear that again. 15% of single adults and 65% of families. And it's probably higher than that. According to Hastings, they are released not due to official Biden administration policy, but because Mexican authorities refuse to take back more than a certain number of migrants each day. Well, you let them come, you take them back. When they run out of shelter space, a lot of times they were telling different Border Patrol sectors, no, we can no longer take any additional people because we don't have additional housing or we don't have additional space in a lot of our facilities, said Hastings. Well, why don't you just, they came across, just push them back. You know, it's like, hey, well, then you get some soldiers here and keep them from coming across because we're just pushing them back. It has been known that Mexico's capacity issues triggered the release of some families, but NBC News witnessed firsthand how the arbitrary nature of the practice can put vulnerable people in dangerous situations while granting relief to others, seemingly for no other reason than they crossed the border at the right time. The Department of Homeland Security did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Of course not. Hastings told NBC News he thinks the way Title 42 is now being enforced makes it difficult to send a consistent message to would-be migrants about what will await them if they decide to make the journey to the U.S., which he strongly discourages them from doing. All right, that's enough of that, isn't it? Let you know what you need to know, ladies and gentlemen. What is it? Let's ask Tommy Lee.
But it's a mess, ain't it, Sheriff? If it ain't, it'll do till the mess gets here.
The mess is here, Tommy. The mess is here. Oh, we got a mess. That's right. Time for God formation, some inside info so that you know what's going on. You're not left in the dark because reporters won't tell you. They can't. They have to, Have to get it cleared. We don't have a free press. The days ahead are already framed with many messages, vaccinations, job creations, their Russia summit, and more. You know, they're going out of the country this next week. Going to be fun. Biden gets to meet the Queen. I think he already has, but he gets to meet her again, although poor Queen. First she loses her husband of 70 years? 380 years, something like that. And now she's got to see Biden and Joe and Jill. They didn't even have enough sense to rename him Jack. That would have been great. Jack and Jill. And I'm not going to go on from there. I promise. They expect to win big in Europe and with Russia. There have already been agreements made with Russia for the summit to be a win. They have factored in many details and are ready for good press if Biden can hold up and doesn't go too far off script. So they've already got it pre-planned, pre-messaged, and everything else. They are working hard on it, and it's already been predetermined. They've already made deals with Russia, ladies and gentlemen. This summit is a farce. It is a farce, unless Putin pulls a fast one. Jill is worried, though, about the trip. She doesn't think that Joe is up to it because he needs his rest times. She is fighting the scheduling to include more rest. Of course, they've got to go, Gadget Biden. A little bit of Inspector Gadget there. This is interesting. There is a Department of Justice investigation about to be revealed that may kind of not look good on Biden, but it's only through a former acquaintance. The question will be, did Biden help him for a modest return on his time? They are already working on it and hoping that the news will not come out till at least mid-July or later, when no one will be paying attention because it's summer vacation time. When things come out in mid-July, it's planned. July, first part of August, because everybody's enjoying fun in the sun without a mask on, whether they've been vaccinated or not. Because I think there's a lot of non-vaccinated people not wearing that mask. What do we say to you? God love you for it. That's right. Go maskless. Yeah. All right. Thanks for watching. Yeah, I'm always glad you tune in. Feel free to share. Tell somebody, hey, it's a good one. A lot of in-depth commentary today. They're coming after you, ladies and gentlemen. You better start screaming now to your senator, representative, to the White House switchboard, because they're not going to stop till they get us all. God bless America. Pray for America. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.